You ever find yourself just mindlessly scrolling through your phone? You pick it up to check one little thing and then boom, an hour's just vanished. Ever wonder how that actually happens? Well, I can tell you this much, it is not an accident. Today, we are going to pull back the curtain on the blueprint companies use to make their products a non-negotiable part of your life. We're talking about Nir Eyal's hook model.
Okay, let's just start with a number that's, well, it's pretty staggering. 150. Any guesses? According to industry insiders, that's how many times the average person checks their phone every single day. And that's not just casual use. That is a deeply, deeply ingrained behavior. And like Nir Eyal, the author of the book Hooked, just lays it out there. Face it, we're hooked. And you know what? He's right. But here's the most important part to remember. This isn't some random quirk of modern life. Our actions, our compulsions, they have been carefully, meticulously engineered.
So, this all brings us to what you could call the habit-forming problem. But let's back up for a second. What even is a habit, and why are companies so desperate to create one in you?
No, check out this definition. The phrase that should jump out at you is little or no conscious thought. That's the secret sauce right there. Because for a business, habits are like striking gold. Why? Well, when a product becomes a habit, we just show up. They don't need to spend a ton on ads or send you a million reminders. The product gets wired directly into our daily routines, our emotions. You feel bored? You open up TikTok. You feel a little lonely? You find yourself scrolling through Instagram. See how that works?
So the big question is, how do companies actually build these habits? This is where Nir Eyal's work is so fascinating. He's studied hundreds of companies, figured out their patterns, and then boiled it all down into a single framework he calls the hook model.
And here it is. This little diagram explains the entire system. The hook model is this 4-step loop, and it's designed to connect your problem to their solution so frequently that it becomes automatic. It all starts with a trigger, which pushes you to take an action. That action gives you a variable reward. And then finally, you make a tiny investment, which, guess what? It sets you up for the next trigger. It's a perfect, self-perpetuating loop.
All right, let's get into this. We are going to break down every single one of these 4 steps: trigger, action, variable reward, and investment, so we can really understand how this engine of habit creation actually works.
So let's pop the hood and look at the mechanics. We'll start at the very beginning, the spark that gets this whole thing going. The trigger. It's the actuator of behavior. I love that phrase. It really is like the spark plug in the engine. It's the cue, the little nudge that tells you what to do next. But here's the thing. It's not just one kind of nudge. Triggers actually come in 2 very different flavors.
So on one side, you have your external triggers. This is the obvious stuff, right? A notification buzzes in your pocket, an email pops up, you see that little red dot on an app icon. They're literally telling you, hey, click me. But the real magic, the holy grail for product designers, is creating a bond with an internal trigger. These are your own feelings, your emotions. The ultimate goal is for you to associate their product with one of your internal feelings. So whenever you feel bored, lonely, or even just curious, you automatically reach for their app without a single conscious thought. That's when it leaps from being a prompt to being a part of you. Okay, so the trigger fires. What's next? The action. And the keyword here, the keyword, is simplest. The action is what you do because you're expecting some kind of reward. And think about how easy they make it. The infinite scroll, the simple tap of a like button, a quick click. Companies are obsessed, literally obsessed, with making these actions as frictionless as possible.
There's actually a formula for this. It comes from Dr. B.J. Fogg at Stanford, and it's as simple as B equals MAT. For a behavior to happen, you need 3 things all at once: motivation, ability, and a trigger. Now, it's pretty hard to control someone's motivation, but what you can control is their ability. By making the action ridiculously simple, you dramatically increase the odds they'll do it. That's why you see login with Google everywhere. It just rips out the friction of creating yet another account.
Now we get to what is honestly the most powerful part of the entire model, the variable reward. See, if a reward is predictable, like turning on your fridge light, it gets boring fast. But when the reward is unpredictable, our brains just go into overdrive. It's the exact same mechanism that makes a slot machine so addictive. You keep pulling that lever because you just never know what you're going to get next.
And these rewards aren't just random. They actually tap into our core human drives. They tend to fall into 3 main buckets. First, you've got rewards of the tribe. That's our need for social validation, for connection. Think likes, comments, friend requests.
Then there are rewards of the hunt, our ancient drive to seek out new things, like scrolling a feed for new information. And finally, rewards of the self, our desire for mastery and feeling competent, like finally beating a tough level in a game.
And this is a perfect textbook example of a reward of the hunt. The social media feed is the ultimate slot machine for information. I mean, why do we just keep scrolling and scrolling on a site like X? Because we never know what the next swipe will bring. It might be an amazing article, a hilarious video, or just another boring ad. It's that what if, that variability that keeps our thumbs moving.
Okay, this brings us to the last and maybe the most clever step in the hook, the investment. Now this is where you actually do a little bit of work. This isn't about getting a reward right now, it's about setting things up for future rewards. It's you putting something back into the system, whether it's your time, your data, your effort, or your social connections. So here's the genius of it. These investments store value in the product. Every photo you upload to Instagram, every friend you add on Facebook, every playlist you painstakingly create on Spotify, it makes the service that much better, that much more personalized for you. And that makes it so much harder to leave. And critically, that investment often loads the next trigger. For example, when you send a message on WhatsApp, you are investing and you're also setting up the next trigger, the notification that they've replied, which brings you right back into the loop. Okay, we've seen how the engine is built, we understand the mechanics, but this is where we have to hit the brakes and ask a really tough question. When does building a habit cross the line into manipulation? Well, Nir Eyal actually gives us a tool for this. He calls it the manipulation matrix, and it asks creators to honestly answer two very simple but very powerful questions. First, does my product actually improve the user's life in a meaningful way? And second, would I, the creator, use it myself? And this really forces you to answer a direct question. Are you a facilitator, someone creating something you believe in, something that genuinely helps people? Or are you a dealer, just pushing a product you wouldn't touch yourself, something that creates an unhealthy compulsion just for the sake of profit? It's a pretty stark way to put it, but it's a distinction we have to make. So, how can you actually apply all this? Well, whether you're building something or you're just a user trying to be more mindful, you can use these 5 questions to analyze any product out there. They map directly onto the hook model. Think of it as your personal checklist for understanding habit-forming tech and the effect it has on you.
And that really brings us to the end. The hook model, it's the blueprint. It's how habits are designed and woven into the fabric of our lives. Now that you understand the mechanics, the power is really in your hands. So the final question isn't for me, it's for you. How will you use this knowledge?